So we talked a little bit about Dorinthea, but what is it that makes her unique? And although there are lots of different ways to build her, what are Dorinthea's good and bad matchups?
Well, Dorinthea is a very attack-heavy deck, right? Whereas the build I took to Devastation just runs only attack reactions, right? And not many attack actions.
Yeah, sure.
So that could be scary because a lot of players they're scared of the ability to reprise.
Yeah, it's hard to
it's hard to know like what you have sometimes. Right? So reprise is a very strong mechanic in Dorinthea, which is what makes her so unique and successful.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes you can just mind game play something like, oh, do I have the route or do I have the twinning blade glint, right? So it's like that's one of them.
Yeah.
So the good matchups is like Dorinthea usually has really good matchups against decks that do not run a lot of defense reactions, because what they can do is they can defend for 6, right? And then if you get over it and then they don't have a defense reaction, it means your Dawnblade is swinging again.
Yeah.
And then as well as decks that don't have much of much armor in the equipment.
Yeah,
such as like
well, you mentioned earlier about chain, like Dorinthea seemed something that you wanted to run into chain. And
yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of actual defense value on his armor.
Yeah, chain. Well, against Jason's chain, he only had the Grasp of the Arknight and the A for Iron Weave, which only has which is 3 defense, right? So that is why I took Dorinthea against him, because I knew he does not play Carrion Husk, which is on his deck, which is pretty good. So yeah, so those are the usual good matchups, and Dorinthea is always good for a race. Sometimes you can input like 9, 10, or 12 damage, and then get a counter on it, and then swing higher the next turn, right? And for the bad matchups, Dorinthea really struggles against like the super control decks, such as like my Katsu control deck, which ran like 18 defense reactions, right?
Yeah.
Like that always struggle against those decks, because like it means that their Dawnblade will never be able to hit the first time, and then it won't be able to pressure as much the second time. And it's a pretty bad matchup against Bravo as well. Bravo, most of his cards defend for free. He has good equipment, defense, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly, all 3.
And then as well as Bravo has like huge attacks, and then you're always dealing with Anaphos for 6, right? So that's really hard as well. So I think those are the 2 bad matchups for Dorinthea, especially like real bad.
So Dorinthea is, I think, one of the best examples of how diverse a single hero can be built. Especially the last season, we've had like sabers, axes, and of course Dawnblade. But what are your thoughts on all these different types of Dorinthea decks out there?
Well, the Dawnblade one, I personally think is the best one.
Yeah.
Just because of the Dawnblade is such a great weapon. It's like a weapon that can pump itself and keep the pump. It's like very strong.
Yeah.
But I'm also a big fan of Dorinthea axes. I actually witnessed the finals of the Dorinthea axes versus the Katsu player, where he had that huge turn where it went like destroy 2 time snap potions, and then activated 2 spilled bloods, and then it was like 6 dominate, 7 dominate, and then another 7 dominate because of Dorinthea's her ability allow an axe attack again, and that was super cool.
Yeah.
So I feel like Dorinthea axes, you're playing a sort of control style at the start, but then you're setting up for the end game with your like crazy combo, which I just said. So that was very cool.
It's one of the most innovative decks that I've seen since almost the dawn of the game, but specifically since Monarch. It's such a sick deck.
I'm very glad that guy was able to win his road to nationals. He deserved that. It was such a cool deck.
Oh man, congrats. Yeah. So since Monarch's release, what kind of evolutions or changes in the way the decks have been made with Dorinthea, what have you seen evolve since Monarch?
So with Monarch, there was this brand new attack action card called Nourishing Emptiness, where if you don't have an attack action card in your graveyard, against Dominate, and you gain 1 intellect of hits. So with Dorinthea, all you're playing is attack reactions and action cards, right?
Mm.
So those 2 cards are like the perfect card to put in your Dorinthea list because 6 dominate, you either force a card and some armor, or you force a card in a reaction. But so that was a great addition to Dorinthea, as well as the 6 power against Prism, which I feel like Dorinthea might struggle against sometimes if you don't find the tempo.
Yeah.
So Nourishing was a great card to add into Dorinthea.
Mm-hmm. So tell us, what makes Boltyn so unique? And we need to know, what are his good matchups, what are his bad matchups, and how does that all work?
Yeah, sure. So what makes Ser Boltyn so unique? I think I've touched on this a little bit in one of the previous questions, but it's the fact that it really cares about the makeup of your opponent's deck and how much benefit you get from the raw interaction. Dorinthea has this a little bit with the reprise mechanic, but a lot of the time she's able to utilize cards to push through damage on the Dawnblade regardless of your opponent blocking, and the fact that if they let it hit, getting a Dawnblade counter. So they care a little bit in that regard. But Ser Boltyn really cares about the makeup of your opponent's deck, because that's integral to how a lot of your attacks will get go again in the late game. Once you've used up your Snapdragon Scalers, once your Soul's running low, once you run out of pump to kind of get your attacks over the line so that they can get go again from Ser Boltyn's effect.
Both of the warriors seem to be quite mindful of what the opponent's doing.
Yeah, it's almost like it's something to do with the warrior class. But regardless of that, it's a very cool thing to see with Boltyn, how much it cares about what your opponent plays, because it allows a lot of metagaming almost in itself. The more that these attack action staples are played in decks, like decks that want to run the Enlightened Strikes with the Command and Conquers, with the Nourishing Emptiness, like these ninja decks that we've been seeing, it really punishes that sort of deck. Also Prism as well. Prism is basically made up of heroes with a couple of auras, right? The only thing it's really realistically going to be blocking with is those hero cards, which makes Boltyn very happy, because it's just like, alright, we're just going in, we're going to go again. We're going to also block with 4 cards, and then use Raiden to attack with 0 to break a Spectra.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet deal. I'm not going to pay any resources or any cards, and I'm just going to say, bang, you're gone. Bye-bye Genesis, bye-bye Arclight Sentinel, all that stuff. It just really doesn't care about it. And I think that's integral to Boltyn's cool factor, as it were.
Yeah. So what are some really specific difficult matchups for Boltyn, and what ones would be a bit of a walk in the park?
Yeah, sure. So Boltyn, I'll start with the walk in the park. Boltyn doesn't really have any truly terrible matchups, but nor does it have any outrageously good matchups. And that just kind of comes up in the makeup of, it's an aggro deck. It's just going hand. A lot of it is to do based on what the opponent's game plan is throughout the game and how well they're able to counteract that pressure that you're putting on, at least in the Radiant variant, which is the one that I'm mostly talking about here. When it comes to the Centauri Sabers, Kyogre Blade Hold, OTK strategy, where they tend to set up a lot of potions, they try to get multiple Lumina Ascension in a turn, and they're able to attack for 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. If you block, it goes 4, 5, 6, 7.
Crazy,
yeah. It's
kind of like that on Sesame Street song. Might be before your time.
yeah, a little bit. And it's a very, very interesting deck, and very, I guess, hard to counteract for certain strategies. Like if we talk about we'll start talking about the Raiden and the bad matchups for that. So going back to that, not a lot of spectacular matchups, not a lot of spectacularly bad matchups. It's kind of middle of the road. But what tends to skew those matchups is how much your opponent cares about blocking. So Chain, for instance, doesn't really care about blocking. So the matchup's a little bit less good, right? The least that your opponent interacts with you is basically how much worse the matchup is when you're playing Boltyn. Whereas compared to something like Katsu, where a lot of it's everything almost in the deck, apart from its defense reactions, are attack actions, means that you're getting a lot of triggers of Ser Boltyn's effect. You're getting a lot of instances of go again. You're enabling that extra source of pressure to keep on slamming into them, as it were.
It sounds like the old, probably almost any form of Katsu these days pretty good for Boltyn.
Yeah, pretty good for Boltyn. On the flip side, like I talked about chain, also Dorinthea can be a bit of a struggle for Boltyn if it's not packing a lot of defense reactions in the sideboard. Shunt being a very key one for the warrior matchup. You're playing the tunic anyway, it enables you to get 1-card blocks off with the tunic that are blocking for 6. That's a really good deal. You get to play it from Arsenal, turns off Reprise. They need 2+3s to get over a 6 block from Arsenal. It's a big ask when Reprise is not turned on.
Yeah. We've seen a few innovations, many different weapon sort of strategies from Boltyn. How would you say the Boltyn hero has evolved since his release in Monarch? In the world metagame? Yeah,
sure. I think most of the evolutions of Boltyn is just kind of working out the kinks of the deck and making the deck more consistent. I haven't seen anything truly wild or unexpected developments. It's all been a very natural progression of, okay, I need to sacrifice this for a bit more consistency. Maybe I shouldn't play so many non-white, non-warrior cards. Maybe I should cut back on the blues, play a more yellow-centric build with less cost ones, and just focus on playing in charge, attacking with Reagan, 2 attacks per turn, and kind of playing that ninja style of gameplay while building up the soul. Maybe I need to play some more 6+ powers, get those bolting blades, those celestial cataclysms in there for the prison matchup, because they're both still light. So they both work off your Luminary Ascension, which is quite nice for your kind of like 6-power counters. And a lot of the rated decks will use those yellow cards as their resource cards anyway. So you're not really sacrificing anything on that front. They're very kind of free almost to play. You don't really get clogged up with them too much when you're playing with Boltyn, because you're able to charge them into your soul, or you're able to break phantasms with them, or you're able just to ship them to the bottom of your deck using those pitch, saving them for those phantasms later as well, which is quite nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But
there's not really much more than that I can really say for the Raiden variant. As for the Centauri Sabers variant, now that has seen some interesting developments. When that deck kind of first came to fruition, a lot of people were playing some really wacky tech, and I mean some wacky tech. I mean, I saw
what sort of stuff?
I mean, I saw a guy play rifting at one of the armories that I went to one time, and his OTK deck to try and enable his B for the Vanguard turn, but that doesn't quite work, guys. Even when you play it as an instant, it still breaks the combat chain. It's a non-attack action. No good. But hey, it's really cool to see people trying this interesting and different things, figuring out how the rules actually interact.
That's how we get the evolution, right? Try it out, feel it out.
Yeah, absolutely. But I've seen people get a lot more consistent with their builds. They're playing more potions. They're playing a much slower game. They're caring a lot more about just defending up, blocking up, assembling this pile of potions, and then just waiting until they have the Luminary and Arsenal or the Light Warrior attack reaction to be able to search up multiple Luminars, get them off in one turn, pop your timestamps, get your extra action points, go wild. Hopefully do that twice in a game, and boom, you're there.
Not bad, eh?
Yeah, it's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very good. Great song. Let's talk about Ser Boltyn. So he's picked up a couple of wins around the planet already with the Road to National season, and some pretty awesome innovations from what I've seen already. What do you think about his sort of general impact on the world classic constructed meta?
Yeah, sure. So Boltyn is actually very interesting because it's not about the changes that the deck itself has made, I feel. A lot of it is about how decks have been responding to it. Like for instance, I've seen a lot of dash decks that have the control variants which have completely stripped their blue attack actions out to replace them with things like blue pour the mold, blue locked and loaded, just to try and turn off Ser Boltyn's hero ability as much as physically possible. Which is a very interesting thing because you don't typically see those sort of changes in the blues necessarily for matchup considerations, but Boltyn really punishes the density of attack action that Dash normally plays, which normally makes that matchup atrocious. Those couple of non-attack action cards at 3 in those dash lists just really help just enable those good blocks and help push through the matchup for sure. In terms of things that I've seen change within the Boltyn decks specifically, I've seen a lot more people go for higher consistency. So ditching things like Razor Reflex and Lightning Strike Snatch, in favor of more light warrior cards, such as like yellow Courageous Steel Hand, yellow Battlefield Blitz. These much higher consistency cards that enable you to hit when you're going off with your Illumina turns. So you always have light cast and charge with your V for the Vanguard, and just going for that raw consistency, that raw damage output, so they can just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to get towards the end of the game, which I think is a very, very cool innovation to see.
Yeah, I remember in your Boltyn deck kit, as part of the Devastation series, you were talking about a card and you're saying, maybe I'll play this, or just another 4+ attack light card so I can get that consistency and charge up the soul.
Yeah.
So it sounds like consistency over power, almost.
Yeah, so you basically what it comes down to is those cards like the Lightning Strike and Razor Reflex allow your spike turns to be quite a bit higher, but they make it so that when you whiff with them in your hand, when you try to charge with the Vanguard, or you flip them off the top with Luminous Ascension, those singular instances can cause you to lose the game. Whereas the extra like 10%, 20% damage output you'd get from them having them in your deck isn't worth the 5% risk that you randomly lose the game when you're getting a trigger off on a Luminous Ascension, which matters more in a big tournament setting and less when you're looking at, you're probably only going to play 2 or 3 matches with this deck and you're just hoping for those power spike turns.
Yeah, well that makes a lot of sense.